because when you're working in a day job, I was come through engineering companies and project management and running transformations and change. People blew their mind when they didn't, how could Fred have an opinion about how to run a website, how to run social media, how to, because I was doing it all on the side. So I think if you're living your life where you're just your job,
right,
what have you got to offer outside of just your job? Whereas if you're trying to do other things in your spare time, and you learn from it, and you can bring that then into your business life, which needs it, because business, particularly if you're running your own small business, you have to be all things. It is, yeah. When I started out doing the strategic work for businesses, I was trying to network, and I ended up circling around the startup scene quite heavily, angel investment sort of scene, and I realised that there was a reason so many were failing. Really, it was when you sit down with the people. They weren't being realistic over what it was going to take to build this business. That's a really good question as well. I think where my journey's come from too, and I'll start before I left employment. I'd worked my way up to the career ladder and realised that even at a director level, even the CEOs of the world in businesses, they're always getting their ass kicked by a shareholder.
Okay.
Right, and no matter where you're at, and you might think, well, that person's my boss, and they have all this, and you climb up. Oh, there's someone above me now, and they're kicking my ass still. They all think I'm doing really well, but they're kicking my ass. Okay, I'll climb up. And I realised the people that had the kind of dream lifestyle that I wanted were business owners.
Hey guys, are you feeling burnt out or wanting a quick breakaway from the daily grind? Well, our friends over at Cyro Boca Place offer the ultimate destination for those seeking a blend of luxury wellness, adventure, and restoration. If you know me, you know I'm fully invested in health and well-being. So if you don't prioritize yourself first, how are you supposed to be showing up for others around you? Looking for an experience like this, head over to www.cyrohotels.com. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom. And I have, I'm going to say a great guest, but you may see this episode either before or after, but his wife has actually been on the podcast, Andrea Warner, and we have Fred Warner on the podcast today, both business owners. But Fred today, who we're going to actually have a great conversation with, is a business strategist. What Fred does is he works with large corporations that turn over anywhere from 1 million to 10 million. He has been in the corporate world. I think there's a lot of strings to his bow. He's a brand new author with a book that is not a typical business book. So there's a lot of things that I know we're going to have an exciting conversation today about, particularly where his journey's taken and what's got him to this place today. And we're going to go, very, very deep, and I'm excited for it. So we just connected online. We had a bit of a chat before this episode, and we're excited to get stuck in. So Fred, welcome.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I mean, just to sort of check in on this book that you've just sort of released. I mean, we will sort of talk more in depth about it towards the end, but when's it out? When's it get officially out to market? Is it already out, did you say?
Yeah, so I've released it on Kindle as of about a week ago, so fresh out, and very much just starting getting the marketing campaign running around that. And the paperback copy, I've just got a proof in my hands, and I'm just double checking it before I release that so people can order the paperback copy.
I'll tell you what, Fred, just show it. Show it to the camera. Let's have a look. Let's plug it in nice and early. There we go.
If it doesn't get rid of it.
Oh, there you go. Master any plan in 7 questions. Simplicity is the keynote. So, what's the message then with this book? What brought you to create this?
So 7Q was something I created as a method, a planning method around about 2013, 14. And I've been working in large corporations running, I guess they call them stage-gated systems that you have in large multinationals, where you take products from an idea through to being in service. And when you do that at scale, you need a kind of a method and a process that everyone follows. Otherwise, you have cataclysmic disasters, projects overrun. No one really knew why they started them in the first place. When it got delivered, all the stuff wasn't ready for the product to go out to market, and it didn't work, all that kind of stuff. And when I was putting together a lot of them for an existing client, or if it was the person that employed me at the time, and I realized that they're all really overcomplicated. Right. And they've become overcomplicated. And it was, in my opinion at the time, they became overcomplicated because people like to make things sound impressive. And when things are impressive, you almost need like an education in it to learn the buzzwords, the lingo, and it makes onboarding new people into that process harder. The second piece that I'd observed, and it went back further in my career to when I was at General Electric, GE, which was a huge worldwide global corporation. And they had stage-gated processes that people just didn't follow. And the question's always like, well, it's the process's fault. And if you spoke to anyone, it's always everyone blames the method, everyone blames the process. It's not the people. And so when you looked into it, discipline was really poor. And so no matter what you put together, you've got to have a way. I understood you needed discipline. And you needed something that people can sign up to do it, that works with the human brain. And then I worked my way through all the kind of things that need to be done in a business, like the stage gated, to take something from an idea through to a thing, a widget delivered, a new iPhone, a new laptop, a new car, whatever it is. And I worked out that all the questions and all the things you need to do, I could fit into one of these 7 questions and say, right, so if you can then break it down to say, I can help anyone make a plan using 7 simple words, and there's a plan. But the order was then really important. And I found, and the reason as we can go into maybe more or in the future is most projects fail because the wrong things are focused on. And once I figured that out, because I'd spent by that point, I don't know, 15 years in project management of some form or another, change management, transformation management. And the reason they fail is because once people decide on what's called a scope, what we're going to do, everyone tracks that and they track it against time and cost. And they're the 3 pillars of project management. The reality is the scope is largely kind of in too much importance, way too much importance, because the only thing that matters are the reasons that you started the project in the first place, which are then the purpose, the benefits, the business case, the reasons for doing something. No one tracks that very well. So once all these businesses have all these projects running, organizations, and everyone starts with, we decided to do this, this is what we're going to do. We might come up with a justification, which is why. And I figured that's the wrong order. Always. And then a few years later, actually, as it happens, because I didn't move forwards at the time, Simon Sinek released the book Start With Why, which is a fantastic book. And a lot of his principles are amazing. Really respect the guy. Some of his points around the next steps I slightly differ on. But if you like that, you'll like this. And it's like, you need a really strong why. And then we build the rest of the plan around that. And it also gives people that communication is one of the major reasons things break down as well. Okay, so I've sat with teams of, and especially if you're dealing in complex environments where there's different technologists, engineers, all kinds of clever stuff, working in aerospace, Formula One, like hydrogen, fuel cell, clean tech, energy, EV, battery stuff, whatever it is working on. If people don't get each other, then the plans also don't do very well. And again, teaching people a language within which they can talk to one another by giving them, well, that's a why question, that's a what question, that's a how question, that's a who question, and that you need to do it in the right order, then it gives people a kind of common language. And I've found that by applying it into corporations, you can break down silos between different groups of people. What was an argument before, I can wash it away and say, now we've got a common language we can all speak around. Yep, no one needs to know exactly how you're going to do all that clever stuff, right? But someone else needs to know that's a how, because they didn't even know it was a how question before. And so we can just simplify it. And that was, I guess, the main thing was this framework was, it was a way of guiding people through planning. I can turn anything from a rocket ship, right down to a house extension into a simple plan.
Are you proud of your method?
I am proud of my method, actually. Yeah. It's been sat in my heart and in my mind for, I sort of, it sat in the back burner for a number of years, but I am proud.
Oh, good. And what held you back, do you think, then, for a little bit?
Doubt.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and probably opinions of people that I look back on and realize they were really egotistical people. So when I first came up with it, and in the book there's this whole story about it, I'd broken my collarbone mountain biking. I had a really bad experience. 2 different plates were put in, and I was basically at home by and large for 5 months in a real bad way with it. The first operation was a failure. Then they wanted me to wait, and then they did a second operation, and there was a whole saga behind that. And that was during the time I came up with this, where I sat there thinking, what can I do to make use of my time? And I looked at all this, and I invented it then. And I sat at home, and I called it Simple 7 to begin with. It's like 7 simple questions. Right?
Yeah.
And I can nail any plan. I nail it. And I can also teach anybody, take these 7 simple questions, as it was called, and go to anybody, and I will help you challenge their plan or understand it better. Because if you can't put what they're saying into these 7 pots, if you want to call them like 7 pots, and there's a wheel, I call it the 7Q planning wheel.
Yeah.
And they go round in a circle. Then you can't do it. But when I went and took that in, and I showed everybody when I was back, I'm like, look, we can bring this in, and it's going to change the world. And I did have some positive people, which I'll come on to one of them in a minute. But there was this kind of a very senior guy, and he had his whole kind of management team around him. There was like different divisions in this business, like business leaders, if you want to call them that. And he crucified me. He just went at me like he didn't like me very much anyway. And I had a really big ego, the guy did. And he really went at me, and he really criticised it. And I think that, and a few there was a couple of people who didn't get it, and it was enough to put doubt in my mind, and I let it fizzle away for a long time. There was another guy who I probably should have listened to more, very positive. His claim to fame was sort of supporting Steve Jobs take the MacBooks to China. So he'd worked for Steve Jobs directly back in the day, and he was a very highly rated consultant and a COO of this business. So he looked at it, and I showed him the whole thing, and he went, "You could make a lot of money with this." And that was a positive at the time. But I think the negative, doubt negativity can hold you back.
Yeah. So out of those, just out of curiosity, just for the audience, how many people would you say was exposed to your Simple 7 idea? Was it many? How many was for it? How many was not for it? If you could work the ratio.
I'm thinking probably about, we're talking senior management in the company rather, because it didn't get rolled out. So at the time, it was about 10 or 15 people.
Okay.
And I'm probably thinking about 4 to 5 kind of had the open-mindedness to think this is fantastic. And about 10 were very much more like, just, this is a bit out there. It kind of simplifies all the clever stuff we do. It maybe it made it feel a bit like oversimplified.
It insulted intelligence.
I think so. It insulted, their interpretation of their intelligence, at least.
Yeah, I know the ego. Yeah. No, do you know what? It's interesting, and I just as I really appreciate you sharing actually that piece as well, Fred, because so you had 5 that was positive and open-minded, and then you had 10 that was sort of brushing it off and were negative. So there was quite a bit of percentage there that actually validated it, that given you sort of go for it.
Yeah.
But we still as human beings allow the negatives to drown us. Obviously there'll be people listening on this that are probably stuck in a role that they're not really enjoying. They want to get out. They're not really sure where to go, but they keep thinking of those negatives. Maybe they share it with people, and there's that one person that goes, "Go for it, chase your dream." But then all the people, "What are you doing that for? You'll never make it." So I'd love to know from when you was in that place where you'd broken your collarbone, right? Because let's be honest, being probably where you're in a lot of pain, most people would probably feel a bit sorry for themselves and not do much. What fire inside of you, what discipline inside of you thought, I've got this itch that I want to scratch, and you got creating?
Do you know what, Luke? No one's ever asked me that question before, and I think I'm afraid of wasting time.
Right. That's not a bad thing, though. That's really good.
Sometimes I put myself under a lot of pressure as a result of it, And so during that time, I also, one-armed, produced several piano songs tracks, and I kitted out a cupboard with foam pads so that I could record vocals in there. And I'd learned to play the piano one-handed for a bit as well.
Wow.
So I already played the piano at that point.
Yeah, but still one-handed. Come on.
So, but yeah, I think it's the fear of, like, I can't just sit here. I've never been that guy that can sit and just watch TV every day. That would feel like, I'd be like, I just can't do that. I need to do something valuable.
Yeah, I like that. And I can personally relate to that. I think, I've always feared, touching wood right here, I've always feared being injured, because obviously I'm quite physical, and like you obviously had an injury, because I'll go, what do I do if I can't go outdoors and run or go to the gym. But like what you did, you found something, that space to slow down had given you an opportunity. So in adversity, which probably people go, well, what are you going to do now, Fred? You're injured. You sort of just, oh, everything will be all right. And you could take that like draining negative energy and be like, yeah, you know what? I'll just sit at the TV and just eat my soul, basically. But you took that opportunity to go, no, do you know what? I'm actually going to be productive and create something. What was the insight? What was the biggest, because time's an investment, right? So what was the biggest return of investment for that experience for 5 months on being able to put that time into those things?
I suppose, clearly, if I'd never had that time out, maybe I'd have never come up with 7Q.
Really?
I don't know if I would have done it, because it was having the ability to step back from everything. And I was doing this at home because I just didn't want to do nothing. My employer were good to me at the time in terms of how much time I was having off. And so I felt, well, I'll just look at some of the stuff that I had been doing with them. And I just sat back and looked at it. And I think it was that moment of thinking, these are all like these sort of questions. What if I was to make just a simple, and then I could have a dashboard that just said like, this is the Y's gone red, but maybe the scope is still green, the what, and maybe, and there's just like a 7-question dashboard that help, because I realized that the executives of businesses, they never really know where the root cause of a problem is. So let's say someone comes to you and they go, this thing you're investing whatever money into, and it's running late and it's costing too much, and they just always need more money and time, but you don't even know why.
Right.
And I think that one of the things I've got to with 7Q is, what if you could know there's a how problem? So if a how problem is like, it's the work breakdown, it's the work we've chosen we're doing, it's how we're approaching the problem is the root cause, and that's impacting the time and the cost, rather than it's just a time and a cost problem. So the question I think the insight was, I was trying to help people at a higher level understand where the problems were in difficulties, rather than just having there's a problem and it's going to cost more money and take more time, which is like, well, that's useless information though, isn't it?
Yeah, you was piecing it together. What I really like this though. This is good, because obviously you are a problem solver. It's like that's what you live by, and it's what you do day to day. Have you always enjoyed solving problems?
Possibly, I think so, yes. And I know that I did a degree in engineering many, many years ago. And I guess they teach you problem solving as well, but I must have been a problem solver. I can find a fix to nearly anything, and I can find a fix normally within 24 feet around me. I'll find something to fix nearly anything, at least on a temporary basis,
Yeah.
And like the kids, they come to me and be like, oh, this is broken, this isn't working, and I'll try and fix it. So yeah, I guess it's a natural inclination to say, fix it. And engineering taught me to try and find the thing causing it.
Right. This is good then. This is good. So obviously that exposure. But the reason I asked that question, do you enjoy problem solving? Because most people, they run away from problems.
Right. Okay.
If you think about it, if there's a problem, there's a problem, they sort of run away. They don't want to face it. It's sort of maybe, I don't know, it's going to take them out of what they used to. What do you learn about yourself the most though, as a business owner, as a father, as a husband, from solving problems? I
think one of the greatest attitudes that even my wife has always helped me with since we've been together is like, there's always got to be a way, right? There's always a way. And the danger of problem solving is you can start applying problem solving to things that aren't really a problem.
Okay.
And then you end up just like, what are you doing over there, scratching around in that? Well, I just like making it better, or which is like a classic. People that are specialist engineers often do that. They over-engineer solutions. And so they need somebody like me reining them back, going like, no, we just need to make it meet spec. Doesn't need to over meet spec. So I think, but it gives you the ability to think, how do we get around this problem? And sometimes I picture, in the environment, in the world, like let's say there's an ant colony, and someone cuts off their path where there's a gazillion ants and they're all trying to climb up something. You know what they'll do? They'll all just keep trying. They'll all be there trying to find a way, and eventually one of them will find a way through something, and then the whole pack follow that one, and they go through and they solve the problem. The problem was they were their route was cut off and now they've got a new route. They've formed a new route. And it's like the mind is like that. It's like you need to probe all the different problems that you've got and try and find a route through. And I think that's really key, because in business, owning a business is not without challenges, and it comes with, it's a roller coaster at times, being a business owner, in a way that having a job, just people think it is the stress they go through in the day job, and they're not liking their role and not liking what they're doing and all that. They don't know the other side of the stress of not knowing if you're going to be able to feed your kids at the end of the month, not knowing if it's worth sticking it out another 2 or 3 months to make it work, or bail out and make something else happen. And when you get the good times, don't assume they're going to stay good. And there's all those kind of things.
This is good, though. I think a lot of the guys listening in will sort of be now thinking, oh, okay, so what's sort of more about this? Because this is a really good piece. So I'd love to ask you, because you've obviously mentioned Drea being a great supportive wife. Obviously, she's been a business owner for quite some time. I'd love to ask you, what have you had to learn or unlearn from having a job to then running your own business?
So what have I learned since running a business myself? So I was fortunate that I rose up through my career ladder to running a business for somebody else.
Okay.
I went independent and formed my own business. And I probably thought I knew a lot. And no matter what you know, you've still got loads more to learn. And wearing every hat, especially if you're a small business, wearing every hat, you're the person that's got to do all the sales. You need to build all the relationships. You need to then sort of make the proposals. You need to close the deal to get the sale across the line, regardless of what it is you're selling. With yourself, if you're speaking to someone that needs some coaching, well, you've got to then work with them to get them to agree that that's going to be a good deal. Let's do the deal. Then you've got to do the operations. You've got to do all the delivery. So you've got to go and deliver all the services. And then you need to do the finance, which is then doing all the invoicing. And you've got to do all the accounts and make sure and then you need to make sure that you're not taking too much cash out, that you're providing a forward forecast. If I do this for the next 6, 12 months, what does that look like? Where does that take me? And what cash position am I going to be in? And if you don't look at it like you are all the hats, and most people, they've probably worn 1 or 2 hats. Maybe they've been in marketing, maybe they've been in sales, maybe they've been in operations, maybe they've moved around a bit. And the biggest challenge I think that I learned, but I also see a lot of, is people think that sales are just going to come in.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm going to spend 500 quid on some marketing, and that's going to be it. And I'm going to be having all these customers come to me. And of course, it's the silence. It's like the tumbleweed rolls through, and they're like, well, it's just not there. And it's like, no, knowing your craft doesn't mean you can sell your craft. Anyone can learn sales. I've also learned this. Anyone can learn sales, but you have to start, and you have to get out there. You have to meet people, and you have to sell.
This is good. And we'll go on to the unlearning in a second, but I'd say the multiple hats. I can relate to this. Obviously, I'm sure you and Dre have a conversation. I have a conversation with Abby as well. She's a business owner. So it's all sort of like you can bounce off each other. There's a great level of understanding. There's a lot of different hats, but there's at different times, depending on where you are in your journey, there could be more. And then there might be less. There might be a lot going on. So if you was to go back, or if you was to say you was to sat up as it's somebody, let's say who's listening today, and they're sat up as it you, Fred, and they're going, because you're obviously a business strategist, you've got a good mindset when it comes to plans, right? If they was to come to you and go, I really relate to that. I'm a bit scared. I've got that fear of doubt, because I have heard this a lot where people say you're going to wear multiple hats. What sort of first step would you be recommending them to put in place to help them go into business? I
think there's some planning work to be done. I think people, sometimes I sort of, when you do that kind of like sound that your plumber makes when he comes around to look at your toilet and he's just about to give you a price and he makes that intake of breath, tells you it's going to be expensive. And when people tell me like they've quit the job, that's it now. What, have you got any funds? Have you got a plan of like how you're going to do this? Have you sort of got your digital presence set up so that you can refer people to that, be that a website or whatever? Oh, no, I'm not really doing any of that. Okay. And then you think, so I think the sharp intake of breath there is they've not done a bit of upfront work, and starting something just alongside your job, depending on your level of risk, can be really beneficial. And it also depends on what people are going to be selling as their service or product or whatever it is they're offering, right? But I think if I go back to sort of the nub of the question, I would be thinking, get yourself ready, get yourself a buffer, financial buffer, right? Because generally, depending on what you sell, if you can line customers up early before you even go, let's start doing this work in 2 months' time, 3 months' time. Let's start doing it. That most work will come by, referral. And for a lot of businesses, you need someone that's going to be pointing someone your direction. And so it's that, and it's also the giving mindset. And I think the bit that a lot of them miss, and you see this in the networking groups when they go out there, they're newbies, they've just gone independent, they're forming a business in whatever that business is, but they're very transactional. You see it in their eyes. They're there to try and win some business in that moment. And if they don't, they go home really deflated.
Yeah.
And it's also resilience. So maybe the other one is resilience. Somebody needs to have resilience, and it's good to have people around you that are going to be like, hey, go on, Luke, keep going.
Yeah.
You're going to do great. Because if you don't, I'm glad that I have my wife to go through it. I think I'd have struggled without her. And I think I'd have struggled because, a few months in, you're thinking, what am I doing? I should just go and get a job.
Okay.
So it's when it's not comfortable, because it won't be, your natural thing is to go running back to your comfort zone, which was having a job.
And did you quit or almost quit? Did that come up a bit for you at the beginning, or?
Oh yeah, definitely. I went through, I went independent about early to mid 2019. I had a buffer. I started doing and I did a little bit of work. I was probably a bit, like a lot of people, not as prepared as I should have been, but I had a buffer. So I thought, I'm good. I've got some financial.
Yeah, you can go for it. Take a risk.
We had other things going on in our life at the time, which took quite a bit of time. And then, of course, as my buffer's running out, COVID comes along.
Yeah.
And shut the world down.
Yeah.
And I've got no furlough, no protection, no income, got mortgages to pay. So whilst everybody else was like dancing around the gardens in April with hot tubs and beers, and that's the benefit of being an employee, where you don't worry about this stuff. As a business owner, well, are you going to be able to survive? How much debt are you going to have to take on? That was a year of taking on debt because I couldn't pay my bills otherwise. And so out of that came the lesson that you really need to have a bit of preparation. Yes, resilience, and somebody to be your partner, and not naive support. There's not much value to someone going like, yay, go on.
I know.
You want someone that can give you a bit of like, well, look, mate, you probably need to think, are you doing this? Are you doing that? And are you doing that? Not really. Right. Well, you need to. And when you probably find this all the time, Luke, when you're speaking to people, you'll be giving them the advice of what they can do. And then if they're turning up every week or month or whatever and not doing any of it, it's like, well, how likely to succeed are you if you don't follow any of the steps in this that are good practice, such as, have you been to a networking meeting in the last 2 weeks? No. Have you done any outreach to anybody? No. But you can't understand why you're not getting a business? No. Okay.
So I can understand COVID, by the way, as well. I was in a very similar position with the fitness business at the time. Shook me up, and I had a mortgage and everything. I was living on my own, and I've soon realised how expensive the apartment I owned. To be honest, it made me check in. So on that note of checking in, I think what you're talking about is checking in. Somebody checking in with you, asking questions. Have you followed this through? Because this is something I've come across quite a lot, Fred, and obviously you might remember this or not, but I guess when you're in employment, you can, I guess, sort of have a daily task or requirement or responsibility of what your job is and what you have to do day to day. But when you're the business owner, but you're also the outreach person, you're also the admin, etc., it's sort of like, well, no, I've not got a box to tick. I've got to create that box and create that structure and do it. It's not just going to be handed to me like what you just said. It's people think, oh, now I've got my business name, or now I've got my landing page or my website. I'm cool now. Business is just going to flood in, and it doesn't work like that. So just for a best practice that you've done for yourself that sort of really helped your business, get off the ground and sort of really thrive and succeed, because you've obviously got a wealth of experience. What's the one thing that has moved that needle that's really given you like a return of investment in business practice?
I think something that's really important, I'd say, is consistency. And it's when you're on your own, and I think you described it really well there, Luke, when you're talking about when people are in a job, and basically they've probably been given a set of things they have to do every week, day, week, month by somebody above them. And if they don't do it, they'll probably get some kind of comeback eventually, if not straight away, eventually. And people sort of do a job, and they're used to being given this is why we're doing it, and this is what you've got to go and do. and this is where we want you to go and do it. And that part is given to them by the business, their purpose, what it is they've got to do. And then when you become your own business owner, that's not coming from anybody. And so one of the things I think they really struggle with is consistently applying good practice. Like, I need to do these things because this is why I'm doing it. I've got a really clear why. Why am I doing this business? How much money do I want to make? What service do I want to do? And like, how is it going to be delivered? And all this stuff. Having a bit of a clear plan. And then consistently being accountable to your own plan. Now, if that means you give that plan to somebody else and you speak to them once every couple of weeks just to go like, how's it going? If you can't afford someone like it or whatever, then at least have a good friend that has at least a tiny bit of understanding of things and can ask you questions, because that self-accountability is just suddenly, it's a bit of a big hole that you're just on your own. And if you sit and watch TV all day, who's to say you've done anything wrong? But it will show in your finances very, very soon.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, I think it's quite similar to what, like when I had a conversation with Dre as well, just about that sort of the what and the how, but like what's in your bank sort of thing, what's coming in, what's the income? Because, is it similar to what, it's not about even it surpassing straight away what you was earning employed, but it's just, knowing like the risk aversion, knowing where things are at. I think there's a lot, because obviously I talk, and I know we're talking here a lot about like mindset. Consistency is big on the mindset. But from you being, I don't want to say employed conditioning, but let's say being in the employed bubble, that bubble's burst. You've now gone into the self-employed bubble. What did you have to unlearn? What did you have to I've got to leave that trait. I've got to get that habit out and I've got to create a new one.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been asked that question. It was a good question. So in terms of unlearning, I'm going to just go with what comes into my head.
Do it.
I think fundamentally, I kind of see when I speak to employees these days, and when I'm also working on businesses, and I speak to, and they can be directors, they can be managers, they can be team leaders, they can be staff members, whatever level anyone's at wherever they're in their journey. They are a bee. They're a busy bee. And sometimes they're not so busy, and there's a separate thing. But they are a worker bee, and the worker bee, when you take away the queen bee and the purpose, they don't realize how much they have to unlearn, which is working together with a group of other people where you don't get to choose a lot of things, where all of a sudden you have to choose everything yourself. So if I think unlearning, it's often, particularly if you've been in a bigger company, you've got to unlearn that you can spend your way out of everything. You won't have the cash flow to spend your way out of everything.
Right.
Let's just go and sign up to this and sign up to that and sign up to the other thing. What are you doing with your cash? Another thing I see people where they grow and go pop is that they, let's focus on recruitment. That becomes a buzzword when you're in a growing company.
Yeah.
But if you're not there, starting to add a lot of overheads and costing quickly, let's get a really shiny offices. Like, this is all the stuff that businesses do. But when you're an entrepreneur starting out your journey, you need to keep everything as lean as you can and think differently to how, if you come from the public sector, for example, they have their issues in all of them. But spending money is something they've all been conditioned to do really well. Right?
Yeah.
When you're running a business, it's like, stop, whatever you do not spend like you did in the public sector, because trust me, you won't have a business. I think unlearning is the habits that people have been conditioned into in employment, that there's always somebody to spend more money with. You're going off with this cap in hand. Can I have some money, please, to go and spend this stuff? That mentality, it's gone. You are the bank, and people like to spend what they've not really got.
That's absolutely spot on there, Fred. That we're spending or we're investing in things that we haven't even got. We've not even sort of pipeline clientele or decided to grow. But that's a good piece, and I know it will relate to some people listening. Maybe others not so much, because obviously you're in your sector, you've done what you've done. But just so people can sort of understand your bit of journey, I guess, in life, because obviously you are a piano, you're a musician, so obviously you love sort of creativity, and you can tell you're creative, obviously, hence the book as well, and how you've created this concept, this methodology, which is brilliant. Have you always, if you go right back to like being a kid at school, did you always engineer things? Did you always have this creative edge, or was it sort of, or when did it come into your life? When did you sort of seek that or know it?
I believe everyone could be creative, truly. And I think it gets misapplied to people that if they feel they're not being creative or they've not been creative to date, it's like, I'm not creative. And that's a label they're applying to themselves. I think everyone has the capacity to be creative. That's, if you look around you, like everything you have in front of you right now, someone's created it. Someone's created the technology that we're interfacing on. Someone's created the road outside, the taps, the central heating systems. Someone's created all of it. And so creativity isn't just in, and I think it's a lot of people could do with knowing that if you're creating a good process for a business, that's helping improve, that's still being potentially creative,
Yeah.
And so I think it's encouraging creativity. And I think sometimes if that's missed, particularly in childhood, it needs to be learned in adulthood. But if I go into the creativity, when I think definitely I enjoyed creating music. I definitely enjoyed creating music as a kid. I'd sit on stuff and I wouldn't need music, and I would listen to stuff and I would figure out. I think one of the first tunes I learned on, my dad had one of those 2-tier, like organ things.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like a church organ, but at home. And I learned to play EastEnders on it, the tune.
Yeah.
And then I figured out, like, at the time, we're going back a while with Chariots of Fire and all these other little tunes just on the one hand. And then they got me some piano lessons. I was already playing the violin. And so I was always trying my own thing. I don't know if I was super creative. I think some of it came maybe more as I got older. And I can't imagine. I don't think I was mega creative as a young kid. No.
No, it's. I'm just curious. I mean, I know this might be a bit of a tangent, Fred, but there's something that's just sticking in my head from what you just shared there before you got onto the sort of piano piece, which we'll go back to in a second, where you said that creativity needs to be learned in adulthood. I really agree with that, because I feel that creativity is dimmed as we become an adult, or I don't know whether it's just because we have more responsibility, maybe there's more overheads, there's more sort of, it's just people's way of living life, I don't know, or whatever. So for you, if you was to sort of help adults or help people bring creativity back into their life, if they're listening and say, I don't really I just work. I work my 9 till 5 days a week, 5-2. So I'll slave it through the week and have my freedom on the weekends. But I don't want to settle for this anymore. What would you sort of say to somebody that could help them be creative?
Look at what they're passionate about. Like, what do you really enjoy either watching, reading about, hearing about? And let's start you doing something creative in that space, not for money, but let's spend a bit less time on the scrolling and the TV and the other stuff, which people don't realise takes, and they have a full-time job in watching TV and scrolling.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And you take even an hour a day or half an hour a day, so you play music, and everything takes time, and people give up quickly because they're not good at it straight away. I'm not as good as them on guitar. Like, you've been playing it 4 days and you compare yourself to someone who's played it for 10 years. That's ridiculous, right? But you just start doing something. If it's drawing, making Play-Doh models, just digging in the garden and creating a beautiful flower scenery. Maybe you really like cooking and you can take all the ingredients you've ever done and start making something new that's your own invention. There's a million ways you can apply it. You see other people, they might be doing it to their cars, modding their cars and self-express themselves, and people look down on it, but they are expressing themselves, right? People do it with their hair.
Oh yeah.
People read their tattoos, and it's, you might not be the person delivering everything, but it's just consistently give yourself some space for creativity and let it, encourage it to come out, and maybe go and do it with other people sometimes, because it's nice in a community. You get together and, I don't know, whatever it is, go and make clay or do art with other people, do photography, whatever, that kind of thing. Yeah,
this is really good though, because it's like if you ask people, what do you do outside of work? What's your hobby now? It's not so much, or maybe nothing. They don't know. I just, mow grass, or I just, go to the pub or whatever. But I think the fact that you said do something as a hobby, don't sort of just do it a couple of times and feel like you're not good enough and just scrap it, just be persistent. Consistency, I guess it's coming a little bit back to that piece, the discipline piece. What's music brought to your life? Or what's playing music brought to your life as a bit of value?
I feel like, for me, the instrument, the piano, particularly, and everyone has if they're a musician, they have their favourite thing. It brings like a connection with my soul. So I can sit down at the piano in almost any mood, particularly from a not so happy mood, and I can connect. When you've built up the skill to connect with the instrument, in a really sort of soulful way, then you can express yourself through the instrument, and it's amazing. And I kind of feel like you're kind of connecting with the universe. Like if there's all this stuff out there in the universe that we've not yet figured out how to tap into it, it's like if we believe in Wi-Fi and TV signals and radio signals, we can't see them with our eyes or hear them with our ears. But if you use an electronic device, it can detect them. Well, it's a bit like that with all the signals in the universe, that creativity. And if you just tap into it, you feel like you can express yourself. And that's what I like about making music. It's because I do play songs by other people and have done that in gigs and all sorts, but it's that creation side. It's that just going to sit and play. And the creative side often comes, you don't sit down and go, I am writing a song. This is my new, it doesn't work like that. You mess around. Oh, that was a nice bit. What did I just do then? And then you might build it up. And then all of a sudden one thing leads to another. And all of a sudden, sometimes a song can spring from, you can write a song in a really short space of time purely by accident. It's like it just springs into life and you don't even know how it came there, apart from you were sat at the instrument applying yourself. And I think that's what you get. That value back is that feeling of like you get to create, and you realise if you take all the credit in your own head yourself, it's like somehow the universe is involved in it all.
Yeah, I like that. It's got, you can tell it's got a lot of meaning to it as well. There's a lot of depth to that. So I really like that sort of expression part, that creative part, obviously connecting with your soul. I mean, how does it make you feel when you're on the keyboard?
A number of feelings, I suppose. I mean, I always say piano because a keyboard to me is one of those little plastic.
Oh, yeah, sorry, piano. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I was trying to think of keyboard in EastEnders.
But I know, yeah, it really was, back then. But in terms of, what was your question again?
No, I was just saying, how does it make you feel when you're behind the piano and you're sort of playing it?
I feel like it's my special place. It's my place where I'm like, this is where I was meant to be. And I feel like I can either express frustration. So the different types of songs come out if you're frustrated. Sometimes some of your best music can come when you're just like really in a bad mood. And then you suddenly come up with something. So it helps release, really. So that's how you feel. You get to like come away from it and you're like, I feel a bit better. I feel better from playing and or singing sometimes as well, yeah.
Is that part of your weekly routine?
Yeah, I would try and play piano every day.
Really?
Yeah. Not for hours every day.
No, I know, yeah.
But yeah, I'll try and play piano every day, and I think it's, again, like always staying consistent with something is key. Like my other instruments I don't play every day. And, I'm nowhere near as good at those.
But obviously you've got, like you say, you've got your favourite that you enjoy the most and the one that makes you, feel a certain way. Just on the flip side, if you weren't to play the piano, like say that got in the way, which it can do, life gets in the way and it might be a week or two without doing it. How does that make you feel then?
I feel a bit lost. When I'm on holiday, that's typically when I'm on holiday and I'm not seeing a piano for a week and a half, and I start to miss playing the piano. And if I could take a piano everywhere, I swear I have a joke, if I could take my mountain bikes, a car and a piano, I could live anywhere really, in terms of,
Dream.
Yeah. And
that's great.
And I think so you feel sort of like you lost that connection with it. And then if I'm on holiday now and I see a piano in a hotel or something like that, I'll be like, I've just got to play that. And normally you're not allowed. And then so I just make sure I'll just play it first. And then once they hear me playing, they don't stop me.
Right. I think I might see it. You'll be the guy in London St. Pancras with the pianos down there playing just in the main hallway sort of thing with all the trains.
I've got a story behind that, actually.
Have you? Share it. Let's go.
Do you know the show called The Piano that's on Channel 4 with Claudia Winkleman and Lang Lang?
I don't unfortunately know. Has it been on a while or?
It's done. I think they're just about to air their third season.
Okay.
And it's just called The Piano. It's based around people that are street piano players, and they bring them in. And the first season of that, I was invited to go into and be part of. So we went to Glasgow, and I came out and met Claudia, and the guy was called Lang Lang. The latest series is with a guy called John Batiste. I don't know if you know him. He's a very famous artist now.
Name rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah, and so I got invited onto the show, got to go through the whole thing, meet the people. I was videoed performing. I did a cover song. I did Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, a piano version of it, and sang it. And that was a great experience. I didn't make it through to the final, but it was a great experience. So that was it. And that came from a video that I'd done of me playing at King's Cross St Pancras that was on TikTok. And that, one of their researchers picked it up and they contacted me.
No way. So that just goes to show the consistency, again, showing up, putting yourself out there, just the opportunities that can come from it. That's epic.
Yeah, I didn't even think they would. I thought, like, who are these people? And they were like, oh, we're the makers of, what was the Great British Bake Off? We made the Great British Bake Off. We're doing this new show that no one's heard of called The Piano. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Well, you would if it were brand new. You'd be like, oh, is this a scam? Is this somebody just...
Yeah, I did. I thought of that for a minute, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, that's a really good little piece there. Like, again, you shared. I keep saying peace. I don't know why I keep saying that. It's because Andrea's got in my head with peace, the word. I swear. I know I'm saying it in a different way, but
you're calm now.
I know. I feel a sense of calm. But so, you know, for you then, with all this sort of creativity, this expression, how would you say that's like drip feeded into your business sense? Like, how important has that been for your business?
Do you know what? I wouldn't have known at the time, but when I set out to be a sort of solo musician, a music producer, stroke piano artist, if you want.
Multiple hats, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I really wanted to be another, you know, I suppose there's always a part of me really, Luke. If like the opportunity came up to be the next Elton John, stroke Chris Martin or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, buy a business.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered about this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm off over here. But what I learned was I had to, going back to, I guess, 2006, 2007, you know, I was organising websites to be built. I was starting, back then it was MySpace.
Yeah, I can remember that.
Get yourself on MySpace. That was where the Arctic Monkeys got discovered and grew, because they built a massive following on MySpace.
Yeah, I can remember that. Yeah.
You know, I've had to figure out right back in the day when Twitter was coming out, what's all this tweets, what's this hashtags, what's this, you know, set up your digital profiles, start trying to plug it away, had to catch the train to London and spend a ton of money trying to go to London, network regularly for quite a long time. And I think what I realised afterwards, it taught me a ton of skills that I would never have had if I'd not explored my creativity. Because when you're working in a day job, you know, I was come through engineering companies in project management and, you know, running transformations and change. People blew their mind when they didn't, how could Fred have an opinion about how to run a website, how to run social media, how to, you know, because I was doing it all on the side. So I think if you're living your life where you're just your job,
right,
what have you got to offer outside of just your job? Whereas if you're trying to do other things in your spare time and you learn from it, and you can bring that then into your business life, which needs it, because, you know, business, particularly if you're running your own small business, you have to be all things.
Yeah. And would you say then that's, again, amazing? I'm feeling a lot from this. There's so good that people will just probably even go back, listen again. And I would definitely say to you guys listening, definitely go back and play this part again, because the creativity side, being adaptable, and I guess having that mindset where it's a bit, I guess, expanded rather than fixed, if you want to say, from just having that clock in and a clock off, and that's me done, I'm out, see you later, nothing. And then actually it's what, if then they want to get out of their job and they still have that mindset of going into the job they haven't really seeked out or expanded their mind through creativity side or doing anything beyond work, it's probably giving a bit of a reason why, you know, quite a lot, because the percentage, I mean, I think this is what builds fear a lot, but the percentage of people that drop out of businesses within a short space is quite a lot, isn't it?
It is, yeah. When I started out doing the strategic work for businesses, I was trying to network, and I ended up circling around the startup scene quite heavily.
Yeah.
Angel investment sort of scene. And I realised that there was a reason so many were failing, really. It was when you sit down with the people, and they weren't being realistic over what it was going to take to build this business. I just need 150 grand or 50 grand or 100 grand and you can have, and everyone thinks they're doing it like Dragons Den, you know, turning up with this idea and you're going to drop some money on me. And then I'm going to go and buy myself a new car. I'm going to go on holiday, maybe spend a bit of it on a business. I'm like, what are you on about? I mean, this is a world where you've got to be showing up to be really lean. And you talk about that unlearning thing and the clocking in and clocking out that you just talked about there. Yeah, absolutely. On the money, you know, if you've got the mentality that says, like, I just do my job and that's it, and that all my time outside of that is mine to do whatever, which might involve a lot of TV and maybe pub visits and scrolling, then, well, you're going to really struggle, because in reality, you're going to struggle because you're not self-accountable and saying, what can I do to grow myself? Have I read any books recently, listened to audiobooks, podcasts like yours?
Yeah.
So you'd like to think anyone listen to this, they've already started the journey and say, well, that's great. You're listening to a podcast like this, which means you are curious, you are interested, and that's a good sign.
Yeah.
But how can you you can't just clock in and clock out on a business and go, that's it. 4:30 on a Friday, you won't get hold of it. You've got to be like, no, I need, especially when you're growing the early days, you've got to be prepared to flex and bend and like, I don't really want to do that, but I'm going to have to put in a double shift.
Yeah.
Across the line until I can afford for someone else to come on board.
Yeah. Stuff that people will never see and understand until, I guess, they've sort of over that other side. I think this would sort of be a good, we're not right at the end, Fred, but we're getting towards the end, bud. And I want to, there's a few things I want to get onto, but just a question for you with all the business stuff that you do now. Obviously, you're running your own business. What's the dream? Like, what are you doing all this for? That's
a really good question as well. I think where my journey's come from and to, I'll start before I left employment. I'd worked my way up to the career ladder and realised that even at a director level, even the CEOs of the world in businesses, they're always getting their ass kicked by a shareholder. And no matter where you're at, and you might think, that person's my boss, and they're like, they have all this, and you climb up, there's someone above me now, and they're kicking my ass still. They all think I'm doing really well, but they're kicking my ass. Okay, I'll climb up. And I realised the people that had the kind of dream lifestyle that I wanted were business owners. Unless you inherit wealth, unless you a sports superstar or you do a leaper or whoever, right? Business is the way to build that wealth. And you're going to have to, I think with hindsight now, I realise you're going to have to spend a few years learning it. Unless you're really lucky, you're going to have to learn a few and you're going to have to learn a few. But it was realising that the real way of me building a lifestyle, if I wanted it, was I couldn't do it in employment. Technically, that's not true. You could go and be the CEO of a big Barclays bank and earn millions of pounds a year and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's not realistic for most people, is it? So it was that path, and I wouldn't want that path either. I didn't like so I chose the piece. So the dream now is by acquiring businesses and taking in stakes in people's businesses that we grow, is that at some point they'll grow and then they'll sell. And that money that we grow through that process, rather than I'm not so much interested in the dividends, not so much interested in the day-to-day profit of the business, apart from growing it to help a good exit price. Because that's the wealth moment. That's the moment when you're going to end up with a pot of money that you can say, I'll put that in my pension, I'll put that in my whatever your investments are, I'll put that. And then for me, the dream really, Luke, in a short answer, is financial freedom. Because I don't believe in the word retirement now.
It's a good thing to say that, is because I'm the same. I mean, I'm getting on a bit now, but no, I mean, retirement, yeah, definitely. You're just basically dead.
Yeah.
In a horrible way, but you're just a zombie, basically.
You know what? I think the word retirement was a word for factory workers.
I agree.
They're at the end of their spent life.
Yes.
You let them retire and they had enough money to just live out their final days, having been, spent their life breaking their backs for somebody else. And so you only retire if you're an employee, right? Whereas if you find something you really like doing and then you monetize it, you might leave one day and say, I'm financially free and I'm just going to go and travel or I'm going to do whatever. But equally, you can just carry on as long as you want to. I'm inspired by often, Warren Buffett, one of the largest guys in the world. I think he's like 94 and he's still running his company. And most of his wealth has come from after he was 62 years old.
That's yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I do talk to other guys as well, and like females, not just males, where they say, I can't see myself retiring. I mean, I'm slow down. Like, I won't do the hours that I'm currently doing. Like, there's going to be a different change of style and the way I do things. A book that, I don't know why this book's come to my mind, a book that is through the strategic, hey, there you go, the strategic coach, is 10x is easier than 2x. Have you heard that book?
Yeah. I've not heard of, I don't think I've read that particular one, but I've come across similar concepts. Go and tell me about it a little bit.
Well, no, I'll just say, just to have a look at it. Dr. Benjamin Hardy, I can't remember the other guy's name, but it's just about, he works something like 6 months of the year, but he has like buffer months, 3 months and like like money earning months or something like that, but just the way he sort of, because he's got a bit older now, but the way he sort of systemizes his year for him, not for everybody else, sort of working around his system, I think is just really smart. So the whole purpose and message behind 10x is easier than 2x is because the 10x may be non-linear, but it's not the 2x linear growth. But actually, when you look at the long term, like what you've just been talking about, you're a lot more abundance and wealth and freedom as a result of it.
Absolutely. And I want to be financially free to do the things you want to do. And that doesn't necessarily have a number, or you have to come up with a number, right? But you also realize the pursuit of wealth itself as a solo thing is very, very unsatisfying.
Yeah. Okay, then. So asking on that question then. So I can see that, like you've already said, you want to sort of partner, you want to sort of help others out. It's be a win-win. You know, you said that earlier on in the episode. So really you're sort of wanting to share the success and excitement and enjoyment with somebody else as well. Obviously, I know you've got Andre, but like if you was to partner with a business, you're sort of sharing that as well together, aren't you?
Absolutely. I think I've changed my mindset over the years, which would be very much people try and think I need to keep 100% of this to myself.
Yeah.
And then you flip it and say, just take, I don't know, Jeff Bezos. Maybe he owns about 15% of Amazon. Right? Tiny amount. And it's paying him really, really well. And I think if you try and think of like people that try and do everything and keep everything for themselves, it's very hard to climb. And so the people that really get it, and I do see people that do it well, they're the ones that get, I just need to collaborate to grow. Not everyone's going to be on the journey for very long because they become quite transactional, where they're looking for their own, to fulfill their own agenda. You need people that are on the same journey with you. But yeah, I think it's more fun doing it with other people and sharing the pie. So I would share with business owners already in place. I also, and talking and speak to other people looking to buy into businesses and say, let's do a joint venture and try and build a company and so that we grow it together, because our joint skills, yes, we all end up with a smaller piece of the pie. But then if we do 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, then we're all going to be in a really good place and we can play off each other. And I find that if you work alone in business, you're in your own business, but you're just on your own, it can be pretty lonely.
I think that's the big word there, lonely. Yeah, I feel that. And obviously it's the like, no trust. It's making sure, it's a fit for both business owners. But I definitely believe, it's that African proverb, isn't it? If you can go far on your own, but you can go further together. I think that's a good sort of what I learned anyway in the high performance world, because I was very much, I think I'd been burned. So I was like, nah, F you, I'm on my own, but then started allowing people back in again. And you sort of then realise how much of a difference that makes. But so becoming a dad back in 2023 has definitely been challenging at times. Being on this entrepreneur journey, having multiple businesses, it can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. One way to kick off your personal development journey is nestled in the heart of Montenegro. Syro Boca Place offers more than just a lifestyle experience. It is the ultimate active lifestyle hotel. Whether you're looking to rejuvenate in this state-of-the-art recovery lab, take a dip in the 25-meter half Olympic pool with a retractable roof, or explore the stunning trails of Boca Bay, there is something for everyone. And if you're like me, who wants to stay active and experience what is on offer. So if you're looking to elevate your travel experience and feel better than when you arrived, to get in on the experience, head over to www.syrohotels.com. Fred, we are getting towards the end of the episode, buddy.
Yeah,
which is mad. I know it does. It just flies. But I want to ask you this question because I love asking it to every single guest, because everybody has a different answer, which that's why it's unique to you. So I'd love to know from your perspective, what does mastering your life mean to you?
That's a good question, isn't it? Mastering your life. I think being able to know you're moving in the direction you want to go in and you're making the kind of progress you want to be making while still being happy in the moment. Because I'm definitely a person that had to learn to enjoy the moment.
Right.
I was definitely a person who just focused on the end result. And then you get there, and of course, it's never quite the result, or it's changed, or something's different. And so you've got to yeah, go through that journey of growing and being in the moment and having a direction and momentum. And when I don't feel those things, when they're not aligned up, if I'm not feeling any momentum, if I'm not feeling I'm making the progress in the direction I want, or if I'm not being in the moment and enjoying the steps of the journey, then it all feels like a waste of time.
So what do you do if you don't feel like you're making progress?
I have a word with myself. I do a lot of self-writing, journaling, what am I thinking right now? Where is it I want to go? A lot of reverse engineering. I love reverse engineering, which is, all right, I'm frustrated with where I'm at. Stop writing plans going forwards. Let's right to left this, which is a right to left plan, which is, where do I want to end up? Define that. What am I going to need to get there? And then, okay, well, I need to start doing more of this. Right, well, why aren't I? Well, I don't know. I've got tons of excuses, right? We all do. And I think so if you just sometimes rip up the ideas you have in your head and challenge yourself to clean piece of paper, define your future self, and then go, right, I'm going to start doing things tomorrow and today towards that.
Yeah, it's good. Yes, just checking in with yourself, slowing down a little bit. Obviously, you know, your thoughts can run away. Speed. I know speed is a lot of things in day to day, but
it doesn't help. Actually, I've really learned off my wife, Tria, that, everything done consistently, it's like compound interest on investments.
Yeah.
Get in, stay in, you'll earn the rewards. And it's like that, I believe, in business. The first few years of a business can feel like you're doing a lot of pedaling and not a lot of movement. But if you keep going and you're doing the right practices, then the growth can be, like you say, not linear. It can just be like on a nice curve, going up and up and up, disproportionately then to the amount of effort you're putting in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like the progression part and the feeling of, I think you like that feeling of, I'm going somewhere. Like you say, I'm maybe not on the exact path, but I know I'm sort of working towards that, which is really good. And I think it's pieced it kind of really well together on everything that you've shared in today's episode, Fred. But just as sort of like a final bit here, if people want to sort of find you online or, even potentially, like grab a copy of your book or anything like that, where's the best place?
I think on, depending on what platforms you use, LinkedIn, Fred Warner. I have a website, which is strategyfred.com.
Nice.
And I also have profiles on, TikTok, most of the profiles under Fred Warner. Yeah, reach out. I'm based in the Loughborough in the Midlands, so it's always good to catch up. But I speak to people, all over the place.
Brilliant. That's awesome. That will all go in the show notes so people can connect with you. And I've really enjoyed this conversation, Fred. It's been very just casual and just there's so much wisdom being shared, I think.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, Luke, and I enjoy talking. It's that crossover between business and life, and what's the point behind it all, kind of thing, isn't it? I really like it. Beyond the boardroom, as you say.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, absolutely insane. I'm buzzing because I feel like you've shared some good stuff, and I know when we had our first conversation, it was very, it was very business, and we've sort of integrated, like you say, those business and life parts really well, which is that's ultimately what we want from this.
Absolutely. It's what it's all about. Because if you focus just totally on business and don't understand why you're doing it, again, your life won't be satisfying.
Yeah, if all you do and all your life is and your identity is just work and business and career, you'll be pretty empty inside because there'll be no, there is fun, but you want fun outside of work that really sort of lights you up.
Absolutely. And one last thing I might say, actually, just for your viewers and thinking, if you're thinking, like, if you take away your job title, your qualifications, your career history, and just put them all to one side and say, let's assume you're not allowed to tell anyone anything about them. Who are you? How are you going to introduce yourself to people? And if you really struggle with that, then that's a place to start thinking, who am I?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think the who are you is such a powerful question when you strip away that everything that you're sort of consumed by. So, look, Fred, thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you, Luke. Me too. Thank you for having me, and I'm sure I'll see you again.